else in the world? Where else? Do you understand the rest? Where else in the world would you have this experience? You people are so creative, and I'm so thankful for you. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Hanukkah. And happy solstice. And hopefully you'll come to our solstice celebration on Tuesday night. So, I have a question for you. Have you ever been called a sinner? Have you?
Yes.
What did you do? Did you ever miss the mark? Have you ever had an objective or a plan or an idea and it just did not work out the way that you planned it? I have missed the mark more than times than I can count. In fact, many times today. I'm sure somebody will count and they'll send me an email and tell me. But that's okay. Gary, you won't get the email, I will. Because every week I learn something. Today I learned that the internet does not always work, or you may not be able to connect to it. You knew that, didn't you? Lord have mercy. When I hadn't printed everything off. In all honesty, not only have I missed the mark, I've sinned. I've missed the objective more times in life than I can necessarily count. And the question is, when you miss the mark, is your entire nature corrupt? So we're talking about original sin this morning. So I'm going to confess my sin. And you want it to be juicy, don't you? I'm really not that interesting, I'll tell you. So let me tell you my sin. I've always been a part of church, right? And I had some friends in the church that I was at who were looking for the sin in the senior minister. It was not here. I have lived in 6 states, so you cannot trace down this story. So don't even try to put together who it is. It did not happen here, okay? So it's just, things happen, but you have friends in church, you don't always agree, and you don't necessarily, when things are said, you don't necessarily push back and say, that just ain't right. But, this crew was looking for sin in the minister. There are people who are always looking for everybody else's weaknesses. Do you know any of them? I certainly do. They are always looking, whatever the weakness is. They cannot pass a chance to remind you that the last time you said this, and now you've said that. As if you can totally control every circumstance in your life. So the issue was that there was a rumor amongst these people that the senior minister had an inappropriate affair with one of the staff members. Now, I was a friend to the minister, so what did I do? I told him that there was a concern. Don't do it, okay? First, I really didn't have a concern about the situation at all. First, because I didn't think there was a problem, and second, it was just none of my business. Unless you tell me, I don't need to know. And you don't need to tell me a whole lot. I can pray for you and not know what it's about. I rarely ask people questions unless it involves me. If it doesn't involve me, I will just let you live your life. And so, I just didn't have any concern. So, in all honesty, I just really didn't care about the scenario, but I cared about the person, right? So, as I have mentioned before, the first time I went to church, I was 8 days old. So that lets you know I have always been a part of the faith community. And so, as a result, I am very comfortable in this environment. That's where most of the people I've always learned is from the faith community. And so I was close to the senior minister. So I told him about the rumor. And he took it well when I told him initially. But afterward, my church world blew up in my face. He wanted to know who said it. And he was determined to find out who said it. Now, it wasn't a simple request. He called me or texted me every day for weeks. There were multiple meetings about it, and I just didn't give. Finally, he threatened legal action against me if I didn't disclose. It has prepped me for the rest of my life, by the way. I honestly was looking out for him. I didn't have any malice in my heart at all. I was just trying to make him become aware. But now I became the problem. Everything focused on me. Everything was, Rick shared that there was a rumor. You know, I was the introduction to every situation. Now, you do understand, I love attention, good or bad. I really do. But in this case, it was painful because I had made a big risk by sharing this information and the fact that these other individuals were my friend. But I became the problem. The situation became unbearable after a while. I just couldn't stand it. So I disappeared off the service schedule and I just refused to attend that church. Now, I've always gone to church, so I just went to another one. Do you know there's more than one church in town? It was entirely too much pressure for me to be there. So I just disappeared. Now, I have never revealed the accusers. The question is, did I sin? Well, I certainly missed the mark, okay? Original sin says that there is, by our very nature, that we are damaged and that everyone is included in this original sin. It is a sinful nature, not just missing the mark. I mean just corrupt. In fact, John Calvin said you are absolutely totally depraved. So remember, the definition of shame is, it's not that I did something wrong, it's that I am wrong. There is something wrong with me. So it creates shame. So Matthew Fox, who was a Dominican priest at the time, wrote a book called The Original Blessing. And the Pope kicked him out. Okay? Here's why. The original blessing has to say that it predates any belief in original sin. Creation has been around a whole lot longer. The universe is 13.7 billion years old. Humans have only been around 200,000 years. And writing 5,500 years. So I think creation wins. It predates it all. It's the original blessing. Creation spirituality is the idea that divinity permeates everything and that all things have the imprint of divinity. Original sin is not taught in Judaism, and it's not taught in the New Testament, which was primarily a Jewish text to start out, and it wasn't even taught by Jesus, who is true that he was a Jew. He was not Christian. He probably wouldn't recognize Christian environments if he tried. He did not say a thing about original sin because it's not in the book. The teaching is the foundation, though, of the loudest voices in society today. There are the people who, this principle allows them to become nationalists and allows them to become fascist in their relationship with other people. Albert Einstein said the most important decision to make is whether you believe that we live in a friendly or a hostile universe. It will totally change your perspective on which decision you make. Original sin, the teaching of original sin, creates separation and division. It divides the road at the beginning of the journey. Everything is filtered through a dualistic view of life. Those roads are so divergent that they never cross again. Nothing is whole in this teaching. There's either darkness or light, in or out, sinner or saint, science or faith, sinner or saved, win or lose, heaven or hell. In other words, I'm saved and you're not, so I'm right and you're wrong. Okay? That's where you end up. So think about the abuse of indigenous people, the enslavement of other individuals. All of this goes back to this idea that some people are better than others in the eyes and the mind of God. It provides justification for enslavement. It motivates colonialism because it's the good people, right? It's the good people who have a responsibility to humanize the barbaric people that they conquer and convert them. The most terrible thing I've ever heard in my life. And convert them. You have to become like your conqueror. So, but that's where this thought process comes from. It happens all over the world. Now, I have heard the question. Most of the people who don't believe that don't go out in the world, though, to help other people. But, you know, that's just the way that is. It motivates colonialism and the idea that the good people have to civilize and make other people change. It's behind the idea of empire. A society that is created by conquest with a dominant core that controls everything in the periphery. It denies Jesus' humanity. Original sin prevents me from seeing God in your face. It prevents everything. Because if I see God in your face, it's very hard for me to have a fight and an argument with you. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to have a problem with people you pray for. Original sin prevents me from seeing the goodness in you. It denies our responsibility for caring for the earth. See, we can waste it all and destroy the earth by using up all of its resources because creation was designed for our domination. Most importantly, it puts the individual in control of whether or not they're good or bad people. The individual determines that they are saved and therefore they are right and you are wrong. The ultimate control, saved or lost. The teaching denies that God is God and that creation is good. Original spirituality says that God's people must control. This idea of original sin is that God's people must control everything. Government, resources, money, what others do with their bodies. In summary, it is control based on fear. Original sin starts with the negative, which leads to negative values. Understanding that creation is the original blessing changes everything. In the words of the writer of Genesis, it is good and very good. Creation spirituality understands that creation is the original blessing. And the participants are part of this beautiful experience of this thing we call life. And that the whole universe, and including us, is whole. It is whole. It is not divided at all. Earth-based belief says the earth is a living womb, nourishing and caring for us. Where would you get your food if creation didn't provide it for you? Nobody has created seed out of nothing. It was already here. In fact, we don't create anything really. It's already here. Creation gives birth to humanity. We are one with creation. We are not a controller. Original blessing is teaching within creation spirituality that divinity permeates all things and that all things have an imprint of the divinity. This changes everything. How can you have war? How can you watch people be hungry? How can you watch people be destitute? How can you put people out of their homes because they have a bad week and totally can't pay their rent? All creation is good, and we should live in harmony with creation. Creation spirituality and the original blessing are our foundation. We don't start with what is fallen and corrupt. We start with what is good. That's where we start. It is good and very good. Creation, spirituality, and the original blessing begins with goodness. Faith is trust. It's birthing. It is unfolding. Passion is a blessing. God is mother as well as father. And a couple of kids as well. See, science teaches us about nature. Therefore, science is teaching us about the Creator. It is not against faith at all. Therefore, it teaches us about the Creator and makes us stand back in awe and say, I just can't understand it all. There is no way to understand it all. It is non-dual. It is dialectical. It is not either or, it is both and. The Spirit is in everything. And all creation participates in its divinity, including you and the people I don't like. It is hopeful. It is about dancing through the place. The world is not going to hell, but we can continue to destroy the earth if we continue to choose to do so. Creation spirituality is prophetic, calling for justice, for society, for the earth, for all things, because it all together is good. It advocates for people of color. It advocates for LGBTQ individuals. It advocates for the earth. Compassion, it brings out of us compassion and love and understanding. We discover what is deep within us, that the Spirit is deep within us. And sometimes society has scarred us to such a point, it is hard to see the light. But if you keep digging, you'll find it. Because it was put there. It was factory installed when you came here. God is good, God is light, and God is love. God is not loving. God is love. Now CSA, us is. When I get loud, you know I'm gonna go back to Detroit. I can't help it, it's in there, y'all. I covered up most of that very well, a little makeup, but it's in there.
I'll let it out, brother.
Oh, yeah. God is good, and we are intentionally inclusive. We try to we welcome everybody. You can be agnostic, spiritual and not religious. You can be totally not religious. You can be one of the nuns, the people who have had no religious background. You are still welcome here because we are always going to create space for you, and we will respectfully deal with one another, because when I look in your face, I see the face of God. Yeah. You are welcome here if you are in recovery, or you should be in recovery. We hold that all science participates in creation, and our community practices spiritual social activism. And it holds issues of liberation theology at our core. We will always advocate for the oppressed, for women, people of color, you name it. Yes, we will. I don't have to have personally experienced it for me to be an advocate for the oppressed. And I generally don't tell people what to do unless you ask me, but I'm going to tell you what to do. You don't have to have experienced it for you to be an advocate for the people who have. There's nobody on the sidelines here, y'all. We are all in this. You are either racist or you are anti-racist. There is nothing in between. All carry the divine nature. We are optimistic. We are hopeful. We celebrate this thing we call life. And we see the spiritual transformation as our unfolding. I'm not changing it to anything I'm not already. It's just coming out of me. I may have to find it, but it's just coming out of me. And it happens because of the renewing of my mind. And therefore, we are all in control of whether or not we want to enjoy this spiritual life or not. Because our nature, spiritual nature, unfolds. Creation spirituality and the original blessing describe our nature as not totally corrupt at all. We just make bad decisions. We are not damaged. So, do I sin? Of course, I miss the mark frequently. But no one is born bad. And I don't generally assign blame, but there are some parents who've cultivated some bad kids. Now I'll stop meddling. Don't send me that email. I'm really not interested. I'm really not. When I'm standing here like this, honey, I'm gonna tell you just how I feel. The universe is billions of years old, and it was created good. What do you think you come from? You are stardust. Yes. Where would you come from if you didn't come from creation? I don't understand the thinking. The world is not going to hell. We are creating hell on earth, though. All creation is divinity expressed. We don't get out of jail free by saying, I'm saved and I have original sin and all I got to do is believe something else and it just all goes away. Everything that I've ever done, I don't have to deal responsibly with it. Oh, yes, you do. The universe is a friendly place. It is serving as a divine womb. It is nourishing and caring for us. How would we sustain life? Even if you have money, you've got to have something to buy. And I haven't seen anybody. I know my sister grows vegetables, but I don't think she creates them out of nothing. Amen? Amen. In God, there is light, and it sees the light in all things, even though there are times it is viewed as being absent. But we understand, no matter how dark the situation is, any light will move the darkness. Any light. We are all to move into this divine consciousness, become ever more aware of what it calls us to do. We are all sinners and saints. It is science and faith. Creation is whole. Sex and passion are gifts of the Creator. It is who and what we are. We get pleasure out of the experience, I hope. Society is terrible because we allow it to be. Because we allow it to be. Because for some of us, one day God's just going to show up and I get out of here. I just got an exit strategy. But that doesn't, I don't believe it works like that. See, we bring about God in the earth because we're the ones that's messing it up. We waste our natural resources, and if we're not careful, we're going to run low, or we maybe will run out. It's certainly possible. We are all one people, and we all play a part in this world, and it works for everyone. It's not supposed to work for me and not work for you. It's supposed to work for everyone. Yeah. We see empire and nationalism and any form of oppression as a lack of God's light, and it needs to change. It's all about choice. There is no separation from God whatsoever. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. All of creation participates in this experience. It's all good and it's all God. So I know you want to know if my sin was ever healed. I generally don't tell the moral of the story because I don't like to be the hero. What you laughing for? So I know someone will always ask, what happened? So what happened is eventually our relationship healed a bit, but it still remained a wound. It had a scar. But we found a way to relate to one another, but it never had the intimacy that it once did. But my conscience is clear, and no one can take away from the fact that my conscience is clear. I had the right intention, And even though I may have to wait till that great day when I'm standing in the face of God to really get that confirmation, I know I only meant good. And that's a lesson to you. Sometimes you will do things in life and they will blow up. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, hang on, baby. Because there's someone creating hell for you, right? Creation is the original blessing. So therefore, we should celebrate and enjoy this thing we call life. Yes. And so it is. Yes. Sometimes the Spirit just shows up and embarrasses you right in front of everybody. Oh, let's pray. Giving thanks and praise. Because we participate in this wonderful thing called life. And we get the privilege to participate in creation. So as we leave this day, let us leave being responsible and caring, being an advocate and a lover of people. Every face you see, you are responsible for seeing the face of God. Amen. It is our responsibility to look for it. It's not their responsibility to show it. And so it is.
And so it is. Sam on the organ.
I'm always crying. I'm just an old man. Let's get ready for our offering. I've been told I got to slow down a little bit. Get ready for our offering. Money is God in action.
Money is God in action.
I send it forth to bless and to prosper.
I send it forth to bless and prosper.
All who come in contact with it. And let's welcome back Gary.